Merry Meet. Thank you for joining me today as we explore different things about Samhain. Samhain is a pre-Christian festival of the dead, which we see originating with the Celtic people who are spread throughout Europe. The blue shaded area you see on this map is the estimated Celtic influence between 1500 BCE and 1000 BCE. The purple shaded area is the estimated Celtic influence around 400 BCE. Samhain translates to summer's end, making this the start of the fall and winter seasons. It was thought to be taboo if the crops were not brought in by this time, and they were left for the nature fairies. At the same time, it was very important to make sure that the food was stored properly and that the animals were safely in their winter housing areas. At the same time, this shows the year is changing. Samhain is the restart of the year, with fall and winter being the beginning and summer being the end. This is why Samhain is known as the Witch's New Year. A moment ago I said that Samhain was a Celtic celebration. It was the most significant holiday for the Celtic people. They believed that it was a time that everyone who had passed during that year were allowed to find their way into the other world, or if you prefer, Summerlands. As these souls traveled to the other world or the Summerlands, everybody would do anything that they could to help them along. Large bonfires were made, turnips were made with candles in them, candles were lit. Everything was done to try to make a beacon for the souls of the dead. At the same time, in some areas, it seems, these would also be done to keep the souls of the dead away from the living. There was more than the bonfires and the turnips and the candles going on as well. There was sacrifices to the deities as well. People were throwing animals, they were throwing fruits and vegetables into the fire in the form of sacrifices to thank the deities for everything that they had been blessed with for the past year. I am going to touch briefly on the veil now. This is the veil between our world and the other world, or the Summerlands. Since the veil is so thin, it is possible for the dead to slip through into both sides. It is also possible for fairies and demons to slip through both sides, which may have been another reason for the bonfires. With the veil so thin, it is also the best time to work with divination and work with meditations that will help you connect to the people who have passed on into the other world or the Summerlands. As Christianity started spreading through Europe, we see Samhain being changed into two different holidays. The first one for October 31st is All Hallows Eve or Halloween. The other one for November 1st is the Feast of All Saints. This was done to keep a sense of familiarity into the celebrations. And even today, there are still arguments if Halloween is Samhain or if Samhain is Halloween. But the argument has never held up because Halloween is so commercialized and there is just not the same meaning behind it as there may have once been. When we think about Samhain or even Halloween, we think about two colors automatically. We think of orange and black. Well, thinking of those two colors is quite natural because it has been part of Samhain for the longest time. Orange because it represents the waiting sun at Yule. Black is because it's representing the death of the god and also representing the darkness that is upon us during the winter months. Jack-o'-lanterns are just not for Halloween. They are also very big for the Samhain celebrations. In Irish legend, it is said that turnips were used instead of gourds, and they would be carved and a candle would be placed inside them to light the way of the souls of the dead. And of course, this is supposed to lead them to the other world, much like a beacon. A Christianized version of the usage of the turnip at Halloween includes a story of a young man named Jack and the devil himself. Jack and the devil met at a bar and they have a few drinks together. Jack tricks the devil by saying that they have no money and he should turn himself into a coin so they can pay for their drinks. The devil changes himself into a coin and Jack immediately picks the coin up and places it in his pocket next to a cross. This cross makes it impossible for the devil to change. Jack eventually releases him and makes him promise not to touch his soul for a year, which the devil agrees to. A year goes by and they happen upon each other again, and this time Jack somehow manages to convince the devil to climb a tree to get a piece of fruit. So the devil's climbing up the tree to get this fruit, and Jack carves a cross into the tree branch, making it impossible for the devil to climb down. After some negotiation, Jack releases the devil with the devil's promise that he won't touch Jack's soul for 10 years. In those 10 years, Jack ends up dying. And he can't get entrance into heaven because he's a trickster. And he can't get entrance into hell because of the promise the devil made him. So instead, Jack is given a turnip and a lump of coal, and while the coal is lit, he is sent to the darkness between the two worlds. Hence the reason why we have jack-o'-lanterns. Trick-or-treating is not a new custom either. Well, the treat part isn't new anyways. Cookies and other foods were left outside for the deceased relatives of the family who lived inside. The trick part came in after the Christianization to show what happens when you didn't leave behind something for your relatives. The difference between the northern and southern hemisphere is complete opposites. Well, the northern hemisphere is celebrating Samhain. The southern hemisphere will be celebrating Beltane. Let's look at different ways we can celebrate Samhain. One of these ways is to create a feast and set an extra spot at the table. Fill this plate like you normally would, as if somebody was going to sit there. In legends, it's been said that this spot at the table was ignored or revered. That is completely up to you. Once dinner is over, you take and move the untouched plate outside and remind the relative that it is theirs, and you leave it out overnight. In the morning, you go out and see if your relative had dinner. Samhain might also be an excellent time to try a new divination or a new meditation or even an old one, so you can reach through the veil and speak to somebody that you haven't spoke to before or in a long time. It also might be a good time to put up a shrine for this person or the people that you want to keep into your household and keep their memory alive. Just remember, they might be gone, but they still had fun and would want you to have fun too. I know on a personal level that is not always that easy, but in their memory we have to move on and keep our heads up. I hope everybody has a happy Samhain. Blessed be.